Hey, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, or good evening, just depending on where you are and when you're tuning in. Appreciate you guys clicking on my video. Before we get started today, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe. I'm trying to grow the channel, so again, I greatly appreciate that. Today, I wanted to walk you through a IT fundamental. This time, it's going to be in Linux. We're going to look at how to make your first bash script. This is similar to, if you're familiar with Windows, like a batch file. You can use this for task automation. And I'm going to show you how to create it, how to modify the permissions on it to make it executable, and then we will run through executing your first bash script. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Alright guys, I'm running Kali Linux VM. Doesn't need to be Kali. This will work across any distribution of Linux. Again, it's a very rudimentary or fundamental task in Linux. So what we'll do is we'll create a file. This will just be a .sh for a shell file, and then we will go ahead and modify the permissions, and then we'll take a look at how to execute it. So in order to, there's multiple ways to create a file, but one of the most simple ways is just to use the touch command. But before we do that, let's take a look at where we're working. So pwd, print working directory, and we see that we are in the Kali desktop directory. So let's go ahead and do touch, and we'll make a unicorn.sh file, and that put it right on the desktop because that's our working directory. Next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go into that file. So we'll do nano. And when I say go into that file, you're going to go into it with Nano, which is a text editor. If you're more familiar with VI or anything else, feel free to use that. Okay, so now we are in the text file, or the sh file, and we are using a text editor. So first thing you have to do, guys, with a bash file is you have to add one line at the very top. So you're going to use this exact string here. So it's going to be a hashtag !/ bin / bash. Alright, that is the one requirement for the contents of the shell file, the bash script. So now you're going to add your commands. So we'll keep it really simple here today, guys. We'll just do an echo, and we'll say hello from the unicorn. Thanks for subscribing, because you're all going to subscribe. Okay guys, now in Nano, you're going to do a Control-O to write out. It's basically to save the file, and it'll come up with the name. You just hit enter, and then a Control-X will exit. Okay, so next thing you're going to have to do, or actually let me show you first, since we've created the shell file. If we just try to execute that shell file, permission denied. Let's clear the screen here, clean things up. Let's take a look at the current permissions. We can do that with ls-ltrh. And those are the current permissions. You do not see an X up there, which means it is not executable. So we have to add that permission. Now there's a few ways to do it. If we just want the current user to be able to execute this bash script, you can use chmod, which is to modify permissions, and then u+x followed by the file name. That will allow that user to be able to modify, or to run or execute the script. If you want everyone, then you would use either the a+x or just the +x. To keep things tight, I'm just going to allow the Kali user only. So we will do a chmod u+x, and then we will do unicorn.sh. And now if we look at our permissions again, we see that there is an X in there. Let's clear the screen. And now we should be able to go ahead and we should be able to go ahead and run that script. And there it is, guys. Just a simple bash script. It echoed the text to the screen. Hello from the unicorn. Thanks for subscribing. This was, of course, just a practical example of how to create your first bash script, how to modify those permissions, and then how to ultimately run that bash script. Echoing text to the screen may or may not be something that's of use to you, but this was a walkthrough of the process of creating, modifying, and executing your first bash script. So, I mean, just to name an example, you could use this to restart a service. Maybe you need to restart a service at a certain time, or maybe you need to check the status of a service, and if it's not running, restart that service. You could do that with a bash script. To take things even further, I'll kind of correlate this back to Windows. You could use, I'll give an example in Windows, you could have a scheduled task that runs every night or every 4 hours or whatever the case may be, whatever your need is, and that scheduled task may kick off a batch file in Windows. We can do the same thing here in Linux, guys. We use what they call the cron tab or a cron job, and that runs on a schedule. And every time the schedule runs, you can tell it to call a specific bash script, or you can embed the bash script code into the cron tab or the cron job. Either way, I'm trying to correlate back to Windows to let you know that those same common tasks that a Windows administrator does are very simply achievable in a Linux OS environment. All right, guys, I don't want to get too down in the weeds or anything. I want to keep this very high level, very simple. So I encourage you guys, get a Kali box. It doesn't have to be a Kali box. Get a Linux box, a VM, whatever you have. It's free. That's what's great about Linux. Jump in there and create your first bash script. I mean, Linux can be intimidating if you don't get in there and just work with it, right? Once you get your hands dirty, get your hands on the keyboard, start creating files, play around with it. Follow my tutorials. I guarantee you'll gain some confidence, and you'll be able to understand what people are talking about when they get down in the weeds with Linux, at least a little better. So yeah, get yourself a VM and create a bash script, and let me know what you did. Maybe you did something other than echoing. I'd love to hear about it, or even create a video and share it with us. That'd be great. All right, guys, so thanks for tuning in. Today we covered the basics of Linux bash script. We looked at how to create a file very simply with a touch command. So you just type touch and then specify your directory and file. And then you go ahead and jump into Nano, which is a text editor, and actually code your bash script. So we looked at that one requirement line. So you got to add the hashtag !bin/bash to any bash script that you create. After you have that first line in there, guys, we went ahead and added our actual code. In our case, we just did an echo of some simple string or text to the screen. And then we save it. In Nano, we do a Control-O to write the file out. It'll just come up with the file name. We hit enter. We do a Control-X to exit. And then remember, the last thing you got to do, guys, is you have to modify or chmod, modify those permissions of the bash script. So U+X makes it executable for the current user. If you wanted to be a little more loose with those permissions, or you need to, you can do an A+X or just a +X. That will allow all users to be able to execute that file, depending on what your need is, guys. And then we went ahead and ran it. So you're in that directory, you just do a // and the name of the shell file. Also, we briefly talked about cron tab and how we can schedule these type of things to run on a regular basis. Maybe we'll take a look at that in another video. All right, guys, keep this one short. Appreciate you tuning in. Have a great day. Until the next one, don't forget to subscribe. Take care.